Have you ever just looked at your life and thought, how can I actually change things? Not just for a week, but for good. Well, it turns out the secret might be in the smallest, almost invisible actions you take every day. That's the core idea behind James Clear's incredible book, Atomic Habits, and we're going to unpack it right now. So, this is the big question, right? How do some people just achieve these amazing things? We always think it's some big, heroic effort, some overnight success story. But that's not it at all. The real secret? It's something way smaller, way more consistent, and honestly, a lot more powerful. Let's get into it.
And to really get our heads around this, we're going to look at one of the most stunning turnarounds in the history of sports. I mean, this story is the perfect example of what we're talking about.
Yeah, in 2003, British cycling was, well, they were a joke. I'm not even kidding. In almost 100 years, they'd scraped together just one single Olympic gold. It got so bad that one of the top bike companies flat out refused to sell them bikes because they thought it would make their brand look bad. Ouch. That's how mediocre they were.
But then this new performance director, Dave Brailsford, shows up. And his philosophy was so simple, it was almost revolutionary. He wasn't looking for some massive breakthrough. Nope. He just focused on one thing, making everything they did just 1% better. He called it the aggregation of marginal gains.
And when I say they improved everything, I mean everything. It started with the stuff you'd expect, right? Like redesigning the bike seats for more comfort, rubbing alcohol on the tires for a little extra grip. But then it got kind of nuts. They brought in a surgeon to teach the riders the perfect way to wash their hands to cut down on sickness. They tested all sorts of fabrics and wind tunnels. They figured out the ideal pillow and mattress for each rider's sleep. They even painted the inside of the team truck white. Why? So they could spot the tiniest bits of dust that might mess with the bike mechanics. Literally, no detail was too small to improve by just 1%. So all this obsessive, tiny stuff, did it actually work? Oh yeah, did it ever? Between 2007 and 2017, all those little 1% gains added up to, get this, 178 world championships, plus 5 Tour de France wins. The results weren't just good, they were absolutely mind-blowing. And this is where the magic really happens. This is why it works. James Clear calls habits the compound interest of self-improvement. And that's the perfect analogy. Getting 1% better today, you're not going to notice it. Or tomorrow. But you do that every day for a year, you end up 37 times better than when you started. It's this incredible slow burn that eventually leads to this massive explosion of results. The problem is, that slow burn can feel really, really frustrating. Which leads to the big question, right? If this 1% rule is so effective, why do we all suck at sticking with new habits? Why is it so easy to just give up after a few weeks? Well, there's a name for that feeling, and it's called the Valley of Disappointment.
Okay, so here's the problem. We expect progress to be linear. We put in the work, so we expect to see a straight line of improvement going up. But reality? It almost never works like that. Real progress looks more like this bottom curve here. And that gap in between, that's what James Clear calls the Valley of Disappointment. It's that brutal period where you're putting in all this effort, but it feels like you're going nowhere. It feels like it's all for nothing. But here's the key. Your effort isn't being wasted. It's being stored. It's building up what the book calls latent potential. I love this analogy he uses. Think of an ice cube in a room. The temperature goes from 26 degrees to 27, 28, all the way to 31. On the outside, nothing is happening. The ice cube is still an ice cube. But then it hits 32 degrees, and bang, the breakthrough happens. It starts to melt. All that work you were doing in the Valley of Disappointment, that was you just raising the temperature. There's this fantastic quote by Jacob Riis that the San Antonio Spurs, one of the winningest teams ever, actually have hanging in their locker room. It's about a stonecutter. He hammers away at a rock, maybe 100 times, and nothing happens, not a single crack. But then, on the 101st blow, the rock splits in two. And he knows it wasn't that last hit that did it. It was all the hits that came before. That's the mindset. That's what gets you through the valley. Okay, so we get it. We need to be persistent. We need to be that stonecutter. But persistent at what? This brings us to a huge mental shift in the book, maybe one of the biggest. It's about completely forgetting about your goals. Now that sounds crazy, right? Forget goals. But here's the distinction James Clear makes. You have goals and you have systems. A goal is the result you want. You want to write a book, you want to win a championship. A system, that's the process that leads to the result.
It's the writing 2 pages every day or the never missing a practice. So why are systems so much more important? Well, think about it. Winners and losers, they have the exact same goals. Every single athlete at the Olympics wants to win a gold medal. So the goal itself clearly isn't what separates them. It's their system. Plus, achieving a goal is just a moment. It's over. But a system, that's what gives you long-term progress. And maybe most importantly, when you're focused on a goal, you're basically saying, I'll be happy when I get there. But with a system, you can find satisfaction in the process, right here, right now. And this all leads to what might be the single most powerful sentence in the entire book. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Just let that sink in for a second. It completely changes how we think about success. It's not about being more ambitious, it's about building a better system. Because when things get tough, that's what's going to catch you. Okay, systems are the key. We've established that. But how do you build a system that you'll actually stick with? This is where we get to the absolute core of the book's philosophy. The secret isn't about starting with what you want to do, it's about starting with who you want to be. Clear explains this with a simple diagram, kind of like an onion. On the outside, you have your outcomes, the results. You lose the weight, you publish the book. The next layer in is your processes, the habits, the systems. You go to the gym, you write every day. But right there in the center, the core, that's your identity. It's what you truly believe about yourself. And here's where almost everyone goes wrong. We try to change from the outside in. We start with the outcome. I want to lose 20 pounds. Then we figure out the process. But the book argues that true, lasting change has to happen from the inside out. You have to start with your identity. You have to ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be? The smoker example from the book is just perfect. Imagine someone offers you a cigarette. If you say, no thanks, I'm trying to quit, what are you really saying? You're still identifying as a smoker who's fighting an urge. But what if you say, no thanks, I'm not a smoker? See the difference? That's a powerful statement about your identity. The behavior just naturally follows from that new belief. And that right there is the big takeaway. True behavior change is identity change. The real goal isn't to read a book. It's to become a reader. The goal isn't to run a marathon. It's to become a runner. Your habits are just the way you embody and prove that new identity to yourself. So, that sounds great, right? But how do you actually do it? How do you build a whole new identity? It sounds complicated, but it's not. It's really just a simple 2-step process. Step 1, decide the type of person you want to be. That's it. Just decide. Do you want to be someone who's healthy, someone who's a reader, someone who's a good friend? And then step 2, you prove it to yourself with small wins. And this is the best metaphor in the whole book. Every single tiny action you take is like casting a vote for the type of person you want to become. You do 5 push-ups, that's a vote for I am a person who is fit. You read 1 page of a book, that's a vote for I am a reader. Each tiny action is a piece of evidence that builds up your belief in this new identity until it just becomes who you are. So, when you boil it all down, it comes to this. It's not about being perfect tomorrow. It's not about some massive life-changing decision. It's just about casting 1 tiny vote today. So the only question left is, what vote will you cast today?